Hello, and welcome to the Learning Hub series on annotation strategies. My name is Sarah Collins. I'm the writing coordinator in the Learning Hub, and I'm here today to provide you with a short discussion on the first step of annotation, pre-reading. If you watch these videos and consider their strategies and tips as you work on assigned readings for your college coursework, you'll find you have a better understanding as well as a stronger recall of what you're reading. For this first video of this short series, we wanted to briefly define annotation in general before we dig into each of the three main steps. So, take a moment and think about what the word annotation means to you. Have you ever had it defined for you, and/or have you ever had to do it before, maybe for a class? What does it look like? How is it different from note-taking? In short, annotation is the practice of interacting with a text, which includes note-taking, but also means having an open discussion with the text to determine what you understand, what you don't understand, what you agree with, and what you disagree with. According to the Writers' Center at Eastern Washington University, annotations are, quote, any action that deliberately interacts with a text to enhance the reader's understanding of, recall of, and reaction to the text. Sometimes called close reading, close quote, they include markings, highlightings, and writings that you should cover your texts with before, during, and after you have finished with your readings. As you annotate, engage in a conversation with the text by asking questions, interpreting important ideas, and giving your opinions and tentative conclusions, even if the big picture isn't yet clear. You can see in the example on the slide that a lot of what makes annotation more involved and a better tool in your reading toolkit than just note-taking is the writing that occurs in the margins directly alongside a text. These make it easy for you to go back later and make sense of the relationship between the ideas you jotted down while engaging with the text and the text's ideas. With an understanding of basic annotation, we can now focus on pre-reading, which is the first step you should take whenever you encounter a new reading. Please note that this is pre-reading, before you do any actual reading. Many people go further with pre-reading than the step is meant to be and end up reading material that would be part of the next stage of annotation. By pre-reading, we really do mean before you actually read anything in detail. There are two main tasks in pre-reading a text, an initial survey or preview, and a more in-depth discovery of what we call the rhetorical situation. Let's take a look at these two tasks. First, the preview. Think of this as a quick skim to take stock of what the text is. You'll be looking for things like how long the text is, so you can judge whether you can read it in one sitting or if you may have to plan out a longer reading schedule. You can also look at the overall structure of the reading, such as whether it is just text in long paragraphs stacked together, or if it contains a variety of ways of providing information, including images and offset text boxes for examples or additional information, or even things like dialogue or lists of discussion questions. Lastly, you can check out the format, which is how it's organized to present you this information. Does it use headings? Does it label charts, images, or tables with captions? Does it use bulleted points or numbered lists? Knowing the overall length, structure, and format of your text will help you decide how to tackle reading it, because you know what to expect. It won't be a surprise. The next task that occurs during pre-reading is identifying the rhetorical situation. That may sound like a scary term, and you may be wondering what the heck that is, but it's really very simple. The rhetorical situation is the set of characteristics surrounding and defining a text. It's easier to understand if I just tell you what those characteristics are. So to figure out the rhetorical situation, you need to figure out these aspects: the purpose, the topic, the audience, the writer, the context, and even the genre, though it sometimes isn't included in this list. I know I gave you more terms to define the first term, but stick with me, this will pay off immensely once you understand it. The image you see on the slide is the Learning Hub's graphic to represent how these aspects fit together to form the rhetorical situation. As you can see, they all overlap and are dependent on each other, but context is surrounding all of them. And honestly, it might just be the most important one to understand. Let's break each one of them down so you can better understand them. First, the purpose. Let's say you had to fill out a worksheet identifying the rhetorical situation of a text. What would you write down for purpose? Well, purpose is best defined by an action verb, a word that represents what the text is trying to do. Common options include to perform, to inform, to persuade, to convince, and even to agree or disagree. But there are so many verbs in the English language that can interpret the purpose of a text. The more specific you can be, the better your understanding of your text. Now, I will note that of all of these, the purpose may be hard to define before you've read the text. That's okay. This isn't one of the crucial aspects to have a handle on before reading. It's just part of the rhetorical situation, so we're talking about it now. If you do want to try figuring out the purpose before you read a text, though, you can try looking at its title for clues, perhaps skimming the first paragraph or even the last paragraph to get a sense of a thesis statement or main idea if it gives one. Next, the topic. This one is straightforward. What is the focus of the article? What is it about? If you're filling out that same worksheet we introduced and we talked about the purpose, you should try to limit your answer on the topic to a short descriptive phrase. For example, if we were studying the current strike going on in Hollywood, we might see text with topics such as WGA strike's impact on union power, or social media influencer scabbing, or even celebrities who've joined the picket line. See how each of those is short, sweet, and to the point, almost like a caption for a picture or graph? For hints on where to look to find the topic, I again suggest looking at the title or skimming the first paragraph to get a sense of the main idea. These are places where texts display their focus to orient their readers to the rest of their content. The next aspect to consider is the audience. This one is important. Who is reading the text? There are two types of audiences for any text, the intended audience and the secondary audience. The intended audience is who is meant to read it, who it's written for. The secondary audience is whoever might stumble onto it for some reason. It's important when thinking about audience to be as specific as possible. If you answer, well, anyone, that's not strong enough. You need to profile the readers by considering aspects such as gender, age group, nationality, and even things like their political leanings or specific interests. How do you figure this out? Well, you can think about the topic. Who would be interested in learning about this information? You can also think about where this text was published. Who is reading that website, magazine, newspaper, or whatever the container is? It can be difficult to determine this without reading the text, but you can sometimes get an idea by skimming and previewing, and this can help inform your understanding of the text as a whole. Next is the writer. Who is the author of the text? By who, we mean more than just their name. You need to profile them as well and determine their identity. Try and find out things like their education and experience level, whether they belong to any organizations, their political leanings and interests. By knowing the writer, you can think about how that informs your reading of the text. Many texts have short bios of their writers at either the beginning or the end of their reading. By doing a quick skim and scrolling through, you can often find this information. For online texts, it might sometimes be a link to click on where you can find the author's biography. In other places, it's written out on the same page as the text. Have you ever seen a reading in a textbook that has a short paragraph at the beginning? That's a really good place to determine these details. Don't ignore that blurb. Context, as we said earlier, is one of the most important characteristics of a text to try and learn more about before you thoroughly read it. Context is key. It surrounds all of the other elements of the rhetorical situation, as seen in the graphic from the hub on the earlier slide. Context can mean many things, but it can include the time period in which the text was written, any cultural factors informing how or why it was written, and any world events going on at the time, or even where it was written, whether it focuses narrowly on a specific place, like a place of business or a town, or if it focuses more broadly on a region or country. Determining the context can take some extra work, but it can pay off significantly. Think about the topic by referencing the title and first paragraph. Think about the date it was written and what was going on in the world at that time. Think about the audience and writer and where they're from to determine the cultural factors impacting its stance. Learning these things will help you better understand the true purpose and the argument being made. Lastly, think about the genre. This one is often not included in a discussion of the rhetorical situation, but in the hub we think it's just as important as these other aspects. Genre, as you may have learned in your literature or English classes, is a type. Often we learn about it in terms of fiction, nonfiction, and poetry, and even through specifically categorizing something as drama, comedy, or even Western or science fiction or horror. But it's more than just those categories of literature. Genre is the mode or medium of presenting the information. Think more broadly about what the container is, how the text was published. Specific examples can include a newspaper or magazine article, a web page, even more specifically whether you found it in print or online. You may have genres such as textbook chapters, blog posts, or even YouTube videos. All of these types of presenting information have what we call conventions, basically just rules or guidelines determining their structure and content. For example, in online texts, we often see things like embedded videos and hyperlinks to other sources. Those same tactics aren't able to be used in print sources like books or pamphlets. Instead, we might see images with captions or citations for the use of sources. Identifying the genre of a text will help you figure out what conventions are being used and how they are helping you to take in information and learn about the content being presented. It's important to note at this point that you may not be able to fill out a worksheet with all of the information for all of the aspects of the rhetorical situation. Sometimes you don't have enough information specifically spelled out for you to identify before you actually read, and that's okay. The work of pre-reading isn't supposed to be absolutely comprehensive every single time. Do what you can. Determine the details you can figure out quickly, and think briefly about how this combination of information can help you as you begin actually reading the text. In the next video, we will discuss specific tips and strategies to help you make the most of reading. Hop on over to that one to discover even more ways of making your reading journey successful. Thanks for taking the time to check out our resources on annotation. If you want to learn even more, look at our website to find dozens of handouts on writing-related topics, and you can also always make an appointment to chat with a member of our writing staff one-on-one. We hope you have a great day, and thank you for watching.